science, baby.
What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Subscribe or die trying. You see what's going on. Salute. It's Martin Luther King holiday. So I'm going to start this off with a thank you, not just to MLK, but to a lot of the brothers. That's what you see Fred Hampton in the background. A lot of brothers aren't celebrated enough. And I just got to get into it and talk about, the many great Black men in the world, past, present, and hopefully future. Not hopefully, emphatically, they're going to be in the future. And we have this issue where we have to constantly prove ourselves over and over and over again to people that don't really care. You know what I'm saying? They don't really rock with us like that. And they want us to do everything on chill. Yeah, and you can see the slight hate for all the Cowboys fans is in the building. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely that slight hate. Shaded hate. Anyway, here we go, getting messages. I always like when I get a gang of messages while I'm doing something. So it's hilarious, But here's the thing. Let's start with Martin Luther King. He's not. It's disrespectful the way he's treated in his death, and not just him and his brother, because people don't even talk about his brother being assassinated after he got assassinated, because they were afraid that he was going to take over the movement and take it further. And the reason I got to talk about this is because, he's not celebrated enough. They've changed the narrative of who he was. The free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last, hoping that we could be a nation that comes together. But we don't talk about the man that said, we here for reparations. See, everything that people are talking about now, he was talking about then. And I find it interesting that we don't celebrate, as pro-Black as we claim to be, as saying that, we've been fighting for justice and equality, blah, blah, blah. He was the first person that was into integration. And he talked about, I fear I'm putting my people into a burning house, So all of a sudden, now we have to deal with this. The brothers aren't celebrated enough. Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking about the brother who drowned mysteriously. Alfred. Absolutely. What's going on? So, my opinion, Black men aren't celebrated enough because our achievements are overlooked. Now, what I'm gonna do is, I didn't write anything down this time, but think about all of the Black inventors. The Lewis Latimer, not celebrated enough. You wouldn't have light bulbs if it wasn't for Lewis Latimer. You wouldn't. You wouldn't. But is he celebrated for that? No. Brother that made the ice cream scoop, is he celebrated for that? No. Brother, what is his? I think I want to say his name is George Crumb. Brother who invented the potato chip, is he celebrated for that? No. Every time we talk about Black men and Black history, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, the tragedy is tied into the story. And since the tragedy is tied into the story, we never give the man their flowers. What's up, Dana? So a lot of brothers aren't really given their true just due in life and even death. You know, yeah, the brother who made the traffic light is not celebrated enough. I want to say that's Sanford. The brother who invented the gas mask is not celebrated enough. You know, the brother who invented the Green Book, and what a lot of y'all don't know, like the Green Book was like the yellow pages for black people, so we don't get lynched going around nation to nation. If I'm not mistaken, that brother was like he was in New York and he was a postal worker, and he started, making the Green Book in his local area, and then expanded and expanded and expanded, and stuff like the movie The Inkwell. You know, I did not know that. I did not know that. You know, it expanded and expanded and expanded, and it got to where we can do these things. Exactly, we all deserve our roses while we're here. We all do. Yeah, the refrigerator, the escalator, the elevator. You know, you just see Otis there, but nobody celebrates Otis. You get what I'm saying? Nobody celebrates quote unquote Otis. Otis is treated like ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. Instead of like, man, that's a great man. Brothers aren't celebrated enough for their contributions in not just American life but the world. And that's a shame. We'll do the who's the GOAT argument. That's Samson. And the brother that invented the um the video game console, the single cartridge video game console, that was a black man. He doesn't get celebrated. Everybody, a lot of people got their PlayStations. They had their Nintendos, they had their Ataris, they had their Segas, the Sega Genesis, they had their PlayStation, they had their Dreamcast, they had their Xbox. But the brother who invented it, no love. No love. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he's Nigerian. The guy that invented the internet, believe he's Nigerian. But we didn't go there. If I'm not mistaken, um, Robert Smith is really the brains behind the cloud. That's how he became, that's where part of his money came from initially. He's the brains behind the cloud. The brother who invented the chip from an IBM. You crazy, Darwin. Gerald Lawson. Thank you, Gerald Lawson invented the single cartridge video game console. This one's for you, for all the gamers out there who love gaming. That man and his family, I don't think they get anything from that. When people talk about, Jack Daniels, and now, a black man who was a slave, he actually taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey. That's nice. But what about his family? What about his family? So y'all didn't change the name. Y'all gave Nearest a new name. His Nearest is whiskey. Whatever. So brothers aren't celebrated. We always like to do people dirty. Just like use him as a reference, just like Bill Cosby. Do you see any stuntmen giving Bill Cosby props? Not forget the people in the civil rights movement. Forget all the help he did, all the stuff he did. That how many people did you see coming? How many stuntmen did you see coming out thanking Bill Cosby? Thanking Bill Cosby for, hey man, I wouldn't have we wouldn't be working like this if it wasn't for Bill. If it wasn't for Bill, we wouldn't have it like this. We wouldn't be making this money. We wouldn't be able to be stunt doubles and this, that, and the third. We wouldn't be able to do all this stuff. Great contribution to the film industry outside, of his career. Yeah, exactly. Jesus went from black to white, like you said. All the great brothers. Like, we talk so much about, slavery. But we don't talk about all the slave revolts because we don't want to say that black men have been fighting for freedom since they've been in America. We want to say that black men have just been docile guys just picking cotton and tobacco and sugar cane and getting whipped. That's not true. Men have been escaping and running and burning down plantations and whatnot. That was all the reality. That, think Blade. That's Wesley Snipes, folks. Wesley Snipes was the reason that Marvel he took Marvel out of bankruptcy and opened them up to be able to make the Marvel universe with him, um, with the Blade franchise. He wanted to do Black Panther, but he wound up doing Blade. He wanted to do Blade and Black Panther, rather. Yeah, man. I know. But that's the other thing about it. We're going to talk about the whole thing. A lot of black men need credit. His brother in the background, shout out to Fred Hampton. Shout out to Fred Hampton. Your schools, it's not just Fred Hampton, it's the Black Panther Party, but Chairman Fred, feeding the kids, feeding the kids. That's part of the Black Panther Party. The food programs, the lunch and breakfast programs. To this day, we still use that. To this day, but do they credit the Black Panthers for that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we need to. We're kind of letting these holidays and days go to waste. With Memorial Day, we don't say well the history of Memorial Day. We just celebrate it. What's happening? These brothers need to be celebrated. Nobody asks, nobody celebrates Crispus Attucks, do they? No. He's just, became a footnote. He's just, because he's black and he died, da, 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 da. Nobody celebrates the merchant marines who fought for freedom. Nobody celebrates Black Guerrero, who wound up fighting for the Spanish in Mexico. Nobody celebrates Gaspar Yanga, who was really the inspiration behind what we call Mexican independence. It was Gaspar Yanga. It was a former slave. So we are the ones, and as black people, we need to be the ones celebrating these narratives, celebrating these black men, because they don't get celebrated enough. We talk about Malcolm, but we don't celebrate him like that. You know what, fam? I appreciate that. That's a hell of a compliment. Thank you. The Harlem Hellfighters, the Deacons of Defense, do not get celebrated enough. Brothers are just footnotes in history. Who are the Deacons of Defense? They're the predecessors to the Black Panther Party. They're the men holding the guns to make sure you can have peaceful protests. Dr. Khalid Muhammad does not get celebrated enough. We talk about Malcolm, we talk about Farrakhan, but we don't talk about Khalid Muhammad. We rarely even talk about Elijah Muhammad. And more so, what we try to do is we try to bring people's negative, man, I'm gonna leave that there right there for a while. We talk about, the negative things that are associated with people, but we don't talk about the positives. We don't talk about their accomplishments to society. The things that we attribute to, to America, to America and the greatness of America. We don't talk about Dick Gregory, his involvement in the civil rights movement. We don't talk about that. He doesn't get enough love. And this is more so our responsibility than anybody else. Dr. Henry Clark, we have no friends. We're really just learning what he was saying years ago. one of the most learned men on the planet ever. You know, read thousands of books. Dr. Clark, Dr. Claude Anderson. You know, I'm thinking of the Claude Anderson. You know, Amos Wilson. Not talked about enough because these are brothers who we forget. Talk about it. O'Shea Duke Jackson. You know, he is making Black history. You know, on this here platform. You know, not getting enough love. The Black manosphere don't get enough love. But I'm gonna go before the Black manosphere. I'm gonna talk about a lot of different topics, different people. You know, exactly the way, you know. Hutch, salute. We don't talk about the greatness, you know, enough. We don't talk about how can I hold on, let me Dr. Tommy Curry. I know his book is over here somewhere. I got it somewhere over here. I might have it in one of the drawers. But Dr. Tommy Curry, the man not. I'll find it. If I'm gonna just keep going with it right now. But I'm gonna make this a little bit more personal. We don't talk about our grandfathers and great grandfathers who fought in World War One and World War Two and the Korean War and came back to a country that hated them and they didn't get to benefit, you know, from the GI Bill, and they still found a way to make it work and have and pay for homes for our family, you know, and some of the family homes we grew up in. Dr. Tia Son Johnson, salute him, you know, in some of our family homes that we grew up in, and some of the, you know, some of our families who were from the country and who were sharecroppers, the toil and the work that those men had to go through just to pay that land off. We don't give the brothers in our own family enough credit. We don't talk about them enough. We don't talk about them enough. Thanks, fam. You know, now we gotta you know, we talk about our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, you know, we don't talk about the men who sat us down and taught us how to fix cars and had us painting homes and window sills and nailing gates and getting on roofs and putting up shingles. You know, we don't talk about those men who taught us very simple life skills, who taught us to use our hands to tinker with things and make things work. We don't talk about those brothers enough. They don't get enough credit. Now we'll call them womanizers. You know, we'll say they probably cheated. You know, it doesn't make sense. You know, the late great David Carroll don't get enough love. You know, we don't talk about that enough. We talking regular men. You remember they made a movie about that. When Mos Def was playing the doctor who was who was the black doctor at Johns Hopkins, and he could never get credit for anything because he was black, but he was really the one behind the driving force behind a lot of their um, medical research and things working. But everybody else gets a statue, you know, and it took them years to get him a painting and this, that, and third on the wall because of racism, because of Jim Crow, he could never really get the credit he deserved, and he didn't get paid. But we're gonna put up a picture of him later. Mhm. We don't talk about these brothers. You know, we don't. We don't talk about the contributions of Jim Brown and Bill Russell, you know, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you know, enough, or Jackie Robinson, or who am I? Willie Mays. You know, we don't talk about their contributions to America enough. We don't. And I'm not just talking about, wait, what? What you mean RIP Black Ram? Wait, hold up, hold up, hold up. What am I missing here? Black Ram died? Because that's something that got past me. You know, I stick to work. You know, I'm gonna shout out Will too. You know, about to say like, wait a minute now. I don't think Black Ram died. Like, don't do that. You know, but we don't talk about Alonzo Mourning. For all y'all, know Alonzo Mourning, the basketball player. Did you know Alonzo Mourning has a high school because of all the work he's done? The same way Jalen Rose has a school. Like like I'm let's go past basketball. Did you realize that? We look at the LeBron James Institute, and we got to shout out LeBron for that. You know, okay, okay, okay. I appreciate you. I was like, hey, bro, don't do me like that. You know, don't do that. Haile Selassie. You know, people don't. Jamaicans, because of Bob Marley made Haile Selassie more famous on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. But a lot of people from Africa have done great things. But we don't talk about these brothers enough. They're not celebrated for that. What are you doing for the community? You don't hear that. You don't hear that often. You know what I'm saying? You don't. You don't hear about the stories, of a person like Marshawn Lynch really being a staple in his community in Oakland. You don't hear about that. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear about people like Master P and how he made a lot of people's millionaires and owners of their own stuff. Doesn't get enough love. You know what I'm saying? Let me take this a step further. People don't give Michael Steele enough credit for how he um, for his job in the Republican Party. They just overlook what he did, because he really is one of the cornerstones to bring them back to where they're at right now. But when we talking politics and this, that, and the third, not enough credit. Not enough credit. We don't show enough love to Adam Clayton Powell or Colin Powell, or we talk about the Thurgood Marshall being a integrationalist, but we don't talk about the adversity of a Thurgood Marshall. You know what I'm saying? What he had to overcome. We don't talk about that. We don't talk, brother. On here, what it took for a brother like Dennis Sperling to be what he is. That should be saluted, man. People don't get enough celebration for what they do. Um, there's a black agent, who's been in football for years by the name of Kennard McGuire. I know you heard of Jerry Maguire, but there's a movie. But Kennard McGuire has been a great agent in sports for decades. For decades. When I say decade, I'm dead serious. I think he's been an agent like that since like 92. But people like that just they fly, they under the radar. Like, Al Heyman is under the radar. And some of these guys don't want to be celebrated. A. Philip Randolph, like, don't want to be celebrated. But we need to say, hey man, these people exist, because for one, it'll help, the next generations, the younger generations know, man, I could be this and I can do this. You mean I could be successful at this, I could be successful at that. Yeah. Absolutely, the Buffalo Soldiers, and they get a bad rap. Bass Reeves don't get enough love. This is, we don't even talk about the real, where cowboys came from. They were black men. This is where this stuff goes. We don't talk about, yeah, they brought them up earlier, fam. We don't talk about people like, when you look at even Hollywood, when you look at some of the top actors or grossing actors of all time, you look at the top 10 of them. Samuel L. Jackson is one of them. Will Smith is another. I want to say Denzel is up there. And I know I'm missing somebody. Now it might be The Rock, and who am I missing? I am missing somebody who's been making, Wesley, he's not in the top 10 anymore, but I'm missing a brother. Maybe Kevin Hart, maybe not. I'm not too sure. But we don't talk about that. We don't talk enough about the red tails. Now that I thought about that, when I saw we don't talk about the red tails. Everything is folklore and movie. Brothers don't get enough credit. It ain't Portier. It ain't Portier. Eddie. There you go. We don't talk about Eddie and Keenan Ivory Wayans, because you got to remember, Keenan Ivory Wayans was one of the writers for Eddie Murphy Raw. Like a person like Keenan Ivory Wayans don't get enough love because he put his whole family on and a bunch of new people. Sanaa Lathan's daddy, Mr. Latham. We don't talk about him enough. He's not celebrated for all he does. Now, a lot of people don't realize, that's the production company behind Dave Chappelle's all his specials on Netflix. Dave Chappelle don't, and I got it, fam. Thanks. I got your message. I sent you a message back, but thank you, fam. We don't talk about those brothers at all. They don't get enough. They're not celebrated. Nobody's saying, hey man, have you heard of the brother who did this, that, and the third? No, you haven't. The greatness of certain people, the greatness of Lonnie Johnson. And it's funny because super soakers have become just a part of American life, as far as, hot climates and summers and stuff like that. But we don't talk about the brother who invented it at all. He don't get that, and maybe he doesn't want that much love. But, what Aaron Magruder, what is the other brother? The one that created the comics, Milestone Comics. Morgan Freeman, that's who it is. Morgan Freeman is one of the top grossing actors of all time. Shout out to the habitual line steppers, man. We don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about Paul Mooney enough. We don't talk about Richard Pryor enough. And I'm talking about entertainers now, but let's talk. Let's get into all the other people. We don't talk. Yeah, LeVar Ball. Stan Lathan. There you go. We don't talk about these people, like their achievements inside and outside. We don't talk about these type of people, the good businessmen. We don't talk about How Tyler Perry is a good businessman. You know, Dwayne McDuffie, thank you. You know, he's not celebrated for being a great businessman and owning his own stuff. He's not. We don't talk about which. I want to say that's Tyrone Hughes, but I might be wrong. And it's another actor. Tyrone Hughes used to play football, but he owns a black-owned grocery store. We don't talk about people like that. It's another brother that was the actor on The Wire. He's from New Orleans. You know, if I'm not mistaken, he owns a grocery store too. You know, Brothers Grocery in Louisiana, in New Orleans, it's a black-owned family. We don't talk about that. You know, in Texas, here in Texas, Frenchies, the chain, the fried chicken chain. A lot of you people who ever watched Jason's Lyric, um, the mom worked at Frenchies. That's actually, Frenchies, and This Is It. Those are actually restaurants here in Houston, and they're still working. They're still, thriving today, and they've had a lot of adversity because they tried to, get them out of the market. James Brown's business IQ was ahead of his time. Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson is a great entrepreneurial story that's not talked about enough. We don't celebrate these type of brothers enough. I know we're upset about the selling the BET. I get all that, but he went from BET to owning an NBA team and owning a WNBA team. His wife actually owns the. I still think to this day owns the WNBA team, if I'm not mistaken. To owning airlines, to owning he heavily into the hotel business. I don't know if y'all knew that, but great man. I talked about Bill Cosby earlier, fam. You know, so we don't talk about these brothers enough. Yeah, Jack Johnson, definitely. You know, we don't talk about probably it might sound crazy, but no, it doesn't sound crazy. We don't talk about Medgar Evers like that. We don't understand how big a part of civil rights Medgar Evers actually was. You know, Medgar Evers don't get the love and respect that he deserves also. I've always loved Tavis Smiley as a person. I think he's a great guy. Tavis Smiley is a great guy. You know, we don't show him enough love. He doesn't get enough. Yeah, I talked about Malcolm earlier. You know, and the black man who invented yeah, we've our ancestors. Benjamin Banneker, doesn't get talked about it in the way he should for his innovation and his ingenuity to America. His innovation goes from America all the way to the UK. You know, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculously great. Um, we don't talk about Paul Robeson. Like people don't realize how influential Paul Robeson is in life in general. To being a man who's who was great at so many different things. He broke the mold at that. You know, good. Shout out to Green Gorilla. Doesn't get enough love. Just like y'all brought up O'Shea, BGS doesn't get enough love. Green Gorilla doesn't get enough love. Like a lot of brothers. Edward Anderson doesn't get the Grinch. If y'all ain't subscribed to Grinch page, subscribe to the Grinch, man. Subscribe to Grinch's page. You know, O'Shea doesn't get enough love. I was listening to Bernard Riley earlier today. Shout out to Bernard, man. Yeah, Huey, Eldridge, we brought them up earlier. Doesn't get enough love. Like I said, Bernard, even Tommy Sotomayor doesn't get enough love. You know, even with this space, even people online, you know, Oscar. You see what I'm saying? Doesn't get enough love. Melvin Van Peebles, great man, great man, doesn't get enough love. Hold on for a second. Hold on. So, sorry about that. James Baldwin doesn't get enough. You're right about that. Ben Carson doesn't get enough love. I tell you, hey, brother, my dear brother, I appreciate it. Jesus, no problem, no problem. Ben Carson, Dr. Charles Drew, yes, with the blood transfusion, absolutely. I I don't care if he f it up. He still don't get enough love. I don't care. You don't get to choose who gets what and how, man. You know, James Baldwin, like you said, Barry Gordy, Lou Gossett, man, great man, great man who hasn't got enough love. You know, I'm gonna leave that alone. You know, I got issues with me and him, but for this one, show him some love too. Because I don't keep up with him after me and him got into it. I'm gonna be honest about that. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't trust people who say they'll shoot me and don't know me. So, but staying true to the topic, you know, doesn't get enough love. You know, but let's take it a little further. You know, everybody's the right black man because thank you, Fred Williamson, Richard Roundtree, yes. People don't, Jim Kelly, yes. I talked about Jim Brown, but you know, how Jim Brown probably is the inspiration for people like Fred Williamson and not Fred Williamson in particular, but all the other athletes that turned actor after that. Jim Brown was the guy that broke the mold at that. Ironically, Richard Roundtree and Shaft and whatnot, but I think his biggest contribution in life was when he came out about breast cancer with men. You know, you know, we've named a lot of people so far that weren't entertainers, fam. I started off with brothers in the movement, like who you see in the background, the King, both brothers, the Nation. I didn't even bring up Ali yet, but inventors. We've went through the whole gamut. We went through the whole gamut. Don't even people in your own family that don't get enough love. Good one, good one. You know, for so you know how can I say this properly? We don't talk enough of, let's talk about Skip Gates. Wow. I don't know if y'all know who this is. Like people, people don't understand, people don't show enough love because all we think about of Marion Barry is him being on drugs. Y'all don't, a lot of people don't understand who Marion Barry was prior to getting on drugs. I don't think y'all understand the greatness of Marion Barry. He's become like a Jordan meme. You know what I'm saying? But as for his contributions to society, great man. Um, um, what is it? Andrew Jackson? Not Andrew Jackson. Lord have mercy. It isn't Andrew Jackson. The 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 mayor for in Atlanta. You know, the mayor from Atlanta. He used to work in the White House. Marcus Garvey definitely doesn't get enough love. Um, when you go to the airport in Atlanta, it's Hartsfield Jackson. Well, Jackson, Garrett Morgan, we talked about him earlier. You know, um, Jackson actually is probably the foundation for Atlanta being considered a black Mecca because he spread it out as far as Maynard. Thank you, thank you. Um, he made the city spread the wealth out, and they used to do that in New Orleans. Um, with it wasn't just what is Ray not just Ray Nagin, but prior to Ray Nagin, the 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 light skinned brother whose father was in politics too. They made the government contracts, go from place to place, like they spread them out evenly. You know, a little dirt. Hey, that's hey, what, hey, hey, it's Chicago. I ain't gonna say nothing. Iceberg Slim. Wow, I'm not gonna. Yeah, that's a little too much. That's a little too much. I ain't gonna front. You know, AME. Yeah, Richard Allen AME Church. You see, like this stuff doesn't get enough uh love in our community. You know, the SNCC. All the brothers from SNCC don't get enough love. You know, all the brothers from SNCC don't get enough love because we just think about Martin Luther King, but we forget about SNCC. You know, exactly. John Conyers, I got to give John Conyers credit. People don't want to, but you should. You don't get Jesse Jackson doesn't get enough love, just in my opinion. Doesn't get enough love. Hey, Faith. You know, and wow, all the and you see what I'm saying? Like this ain't about taking a dump on people. I brought up Lewis Latimer earlier. And this is the issue. Um, what's the brother that just died? Virgil. Virgil was it Virgil Hill? I want to say the designer that used to work with Kanye that wound up working with Louis Vuitton. He's passed on, but he's his contributions to fashion go crazy. Harold Washington. People forgot about Harold Washington. Like he was like a turning point, a tipping point for Black America to let we can achieve things. It's unfortunate how he passed away and when he passed away. Steve Coakley, wow. You know, Kwesi, Fume. We brought up Stoke. Somebody brought up Stokely earlier. You know, Al Sharpton got to get his love too, man. If we gonna give James Brown love, you got to understand. James was Al Sharpton mentor. I've seen Al Sharpton do some things. Jamie Foxx is an American treasure, in my opinion. Like, let me tell you a true story about Al Sharpton. And this what made me look at him, a certain type of way, in a different way. I was going to this church out here, and it's called, and I ain't gonna say the name of the church. I was about to, but brother, pastor, he's a good guy too. He's a real good dude. Um, he brought in Al Sharpton one Sunday, And Al Sharpton was talking some real stuff, but the church couldn't take it in. So Al Sharpton stopped in the middle of all the real stuff he was talking, because you could tell it was like it was hitting so hard and it was a culture shock and people just wanted to be entertained. And then he stopped in the middle, started hooping and hollering, and the crowd just went back. Ah! And at that moment, I was like, you know what? Al Sharpton understands our people better than we understand ourselves. Because what he gave us in the first half of his preaching was really what we needed, but that's not what we wanted. So then he gave us what we wanted. And then it was like, oh my God, this is what we are. This is what we are. Jamie Foxx is, like I said, he's an American treasure. You know, he's from Terrell. He's from Terrell, Texas. He's from outside of Dallas. You know, Patrice Lumumba. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I got it. Jamie from Terrell, Texas. You know, Ironically, and I think about sports. We don't, we talk about the GOAT, and people bring up Tom Brady, which I think he's one of the greatest football players of all time, in my opinion. But to be the greatest football player of all time has to be Jerry Rice. Has to be. Doesn't I mean he's just that much head and shoulders better than everybody. Speaking of that, um, we don't talk about Lee Haney, his greatness. When you think about bodybuilder, we don't talk about Lee Haney. What is the other brother's name? Oliver. Like, a lot of y'all don't know. Whoever watched Baki Hanma, Baki, like the anime on Netflix, the Japanese anime, there's a guy in there called Unchained. His name is Oliver. Oliver is actually named after a bodybuilder by the name of Oliver. He won like the second or third Mr. Olympia. But because we have great brothers in so many different factors and fashions of life, we don't know that they're there. You know, definitely Hank, Josh Gibson. There you go, Serge. Yes, you know, you know that man was a bodybuilding specimen very, very early. You know, um, doesn't get enough love. And like I said, Lee Haney doesn't get enough love. You know, people forget Ronnie Coleman, and not to mention, even with bodybuilding, Dexter Jackson is like, he's one of the greatest of all time, just by his you know by his longevity and the vastness of his wins. Like, gotta give it to him. Gotta give it to him. Concrete. What is the Black Sands? It's a brother that has is a comic out right now. Black Sands doesn't get enough love. What the heck? There's a lot of black preachers who don't get enough love. You know, people who was he said Al Roker and Brian Williams. What about is that what's the brother that had he was cool. As he got old, he put the earring in his ear. You know, he's dope. Edwin Moses. Wyclef, yeah. D'Angelo, I think one of the greatest composers of our time. Michael Jackson, Prince, D'Angelo, Raphael Sadiq, Tony. One of the greatest groups of all time. R. Kelly, yeah, he's in jail. I don't care. Still doesn't get enough love. About how great people can actually be. We don't talk about this. Brian Banks, his situation, he shines a light on things that happen, but he doesn't get enough love. what Allen Iverson went through to become Allen Iverson in the first place. You know, prior to even the NBA, prior to even Georgetown, you don't get enough love to that man's um, talent and determination and ability and sheer willpower to keep going through things. Toussaint Louverture, Bookman, do not get enough love whatsoever. Nat Turner does not get enough love. See, we don't celebrate brothers, and it's why names keep coming because it's a lot of our greatness is so vast, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You know, you can't say we haven't touched everything. Wow, the boxer, Mike Tyson, his life story. Like I said, Muhammad Ali. I ain't touched, what Muhammad Ali did inside out the ring and outside the ring. I think, and I sometimes get sentimental about this. I don't think y'all remember when Muhammad Ali was on national television and he saved a brother from jumping off a building and committing suicide. That's what made him one of the greatest men of all time. True story. True story. The man who discovered or founded Chicago, Jean Baptiste doesn't, we don't show him enough love. It's crazy. But it's true, very true. Because as much as we talk about mental health, we skip over that. We really skip over that, And it's funny, but people talk. It's a reason why New York City really loves and respects Charles Oakley. It's a reason. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't get enough love. Doesn't. Warren Moon, absolutely. Warren Moon was that dude. From everything he went through, does not get enough love. Same thing as Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry. Doesn't get enough love. KRS-One. I love KRS-One, actually. This dude. You know what? Whatever, Paul. But there's a lot of brothers, that I can think of. Arthur Ashe is a great. Not just Arthur Ashe. What is the Lacoste? Lacoste. If for all you who don't know tennis, but clothing, the Lacoste brand of clothing is actually named after a black tennis player. They used to call him the gator or whatever, the crocodile, something like that. And what's up, Damon, man? Thank you, fam. He was the inspiration behind the actual brand, and that's who the brand is named after. Doesn't get enough love. Just like we talked about, even though people try to throw some dirt on his name, oh man, King, wow, Venus and Serena Williams' father, he doesn't get enough love. I'm glad they got the movie, but I don't think people really took into consideration what he did. Like how that's like probably one of the greatest coaching stories in American history. The story, I know Denzel played the character in Remember the Titans, but that brother in the Carolinas, the historical coach, does not get enough love. There's a lot of historical coaches throughout the South, throughout universities, through different schools, who we forget about. Eddie Robinson would be the college version, but there's a lot of high school versions of that also. Eddie Robinson doesn't get enough love of what he accomplished with that program. You know, people don't realize that. That's why you see Prime and Eddie George, and who am I missing, man? It's a few other brothers, man, that are at these HBCUs. I think Hugh Jackson is going. Oh man, Otis Redding, man. You know, yeah, Lou Rawls, Teddy P, Sam Cooke. I know they did it recently, but I don't think people realize his impact as far as thank you, Renee Lacoste. His impact um with the civil rights movement, because they show it in the movies how we talk about Malcolm, we talk about Ali, and they were probably the most extreme because they were both in the nation. But in the friendship they had with Jim Brown, but also Sam Cooke, like he was an integral part of everything. Carter G. Woodson, that's a great one. That's a great one. You know, Sam Cooke is like the blueprint for a lot of entrepreneur, not that, a lot of Ray Charles. Oh man, like Ray Charles and Sam Cooke are like the blueprint for an artist finding its independence, finding his or her independence. That those guys are really, really the staple for that. Really, really and truly. You know, and of course, like when we brought up Barry Gordy earlier, what's up, Super High, man? You know, appreciate it. You know, now when I think about, a lot of stuff that goes on with us, I just think about it in that aspect that we're not um beating on the table like we should be for each other, you know. Actually you brought up Huey earlier. Definitely Huey. I just said the Panthers earlier, but Huey's definitely in there. Definitely in there. Um Joe Jackson, man. Joe Jackson was a wonderful father, man. I don't think people realize that. Like I really don't. I really don't think, if it, to be the father and to be the driving force behind of all that greatness is ridiculous. Ridiculous. No, like yeah, Luther, definitely. Marvin Gaye, definitely great. Definitely great. You know, Johnny Cochran. Say what you will, but Johnny Cochran is probably one of the great American. Like Johnny Cochran may be a bigger American story about law than Thurgood Marshall, and it's not about the OJ trial. Really, they tried to get vilified with the OJ, but his reputation for being a winner is really his name. Do people realize there's still a Cochran law firm to this day because his name is so synonymous with winning cases? You know like that's phenomenal. Smokey, yeah, Smokey's one of the great songwriters and about controlling things of all time. You know, definitely Quincy. You know, I gotta give Kanye his greatness too, man. Kanye's great. Jay-Z's great. Tupac, Biggie. You know, I brought up Master P earlier. Yeah, I'm in Houston. Like it or not, Jay Prince is a juggernaut when it comes to business. Juggernaut. Juggernaut. Yeah, you know what? What is the brother here? Jesse Jones or something like that. Forgot his doggone name just now. Uh, John Thompson, definitely a godsend. Definitely a godsend. Um, oh man, I forgot that brother's name just now. There's a congressman out here, Al Green. Sylvester Turner wanna be is mayor out here. I think he's still a mayor now. Maybe not. Maybe not. You know, a lot of brothers do a lot of great things and they're just overlooked. You know, just overlooked. And we can't keep doing it to each other, man. We just can't. So I just had to put that out there. I really did. Just Lionel Richie. Salute to Lionel Richie. Um, Bob Marley has always been a great brother in my opinion. You know, Oh, shout out. And Junior is, you know, hey, shout out to that. See, I grew up in Maywood, so you already know how I feel about that whole family. So they all got my love, man. You know, all got my love. Desmond Tutu, Bishop Tutu, the loneliest monk. Oh my God, the loneliest monk, man. Stevie Wonder, absolutely. You know, the loneliest monk was like Timberland before Timberland. If y'all don't understand that, he was the first person that people heard. He was very authentic. He was offbeat till he was on beat. Like, you know, great man, great. Now that I think about it, Biko, yes, Biko was great. The Isley brothers, just all the brothers. We just brought up the loneliest, Grover Washington. Oh man, Grover Washington, phenomenal. You brought up Miles. Um, Come on now, Grover Washington. Who am I missing? And Coltrane, Ozzy. Yes, Ozzy's great. Shaka Zulu has always been Hannibal. Of a lot of people don't realize, the genius of Hannibal. You know, the genius of Hannibal. The great brother. Um, but yeah, I brought up Parker not too long ago. Ozzy Davis. Oh, some people say Ozzy, some people say Ozzy. You know, great brother. But I'm gonna get out of here. I got some parenting to do. Um, but we got to celebrate, our own greatness, man, because nobody else will. You get what I'm saying? Nobody else will, and we need to do that. So I'm gonna thank y'all for rocking with me, man. It's been like an hour, so catch y'all on the next one. I'm gonna count this thing down and be out of here. Peace.